Twitter can definitely be a fickle mistress most of the time, but you also get a lot of nuggets of truth and you also get a lot of information. If you like to eat, sleep, and breathe Oklahoma State or Big 12, this is really the best place for you to be. So let's find out why.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things cowboy and cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. Find me on Twitter at Alldeo State. We are available on every single podcasting platform as well as YouTube. All right, so we're going to jump right into this, guys. We do a lot of stuff on Twitter, right? There's a pretty good little group of O State guys who do it on a regular basis. We may not go daily, but we at least go pretty much every other day. And we chop it up sometimes for hours. Sometimes it's short. Sometimes we'll talk about football, basketball, baseball, track, soccer, cross country, golf. It really doesn't matter. If it's Oklahoma State or Big 12 involved, we cover it. And let me introduce you to somebody we got joining the show today, my main man on these Twitter spaces that helps run things the right way, Mr. Trent Snitz. What's up, my brother, man? How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, man. Thank you for allowing me to come on your show.
Absolutely, brother, man. Yeah, so we chop it up all the time, right? Me and you and Jason and Davis and a bunch of other people on the Twitter spaces. And the reason I kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit more is whenever you see all these spaces, right, it's typically you see places like Miami, Texas A&M, Florida State, Texas. They have Twitter spaces every single day for hours and hours and hours, right? And the whole idea behind this job is to help grow Oklahoma State University. And I do know whether you like it, love it, or hate it, Twitter is probably the biggest voice out there for people to obtain quote-unquote information. I say quote unquote with bunny ears because I know getting information on Twitter, it's like sifting through the ashes to find one coal. I get it, which is why I brought you on, which is why we're having this conversation. What we're going to talk about today is going to be very reminiscent of what we're going to talk about on Twitter Spaces. So if you need more Oklahoma State info and you just can't get enough of it, and if you're anything like us, these Twitter Spaces are very beneficial. Sometimes we have current players on, former players on, players of parents or parents of players. And it's just the dichotomy of the amount of knowledge that gets spread. It's actually pretty cool. And it makes it a lot of fun. So thank you for being integral in that ride. So today, what we're going to jump into first, we can talk about everything. But the hot topic always has been, always will be the quarterback position, right? That's the sexy pick. So if you watched the show yesterday, I don't know, we talked about it a little bit on the Twitter Spaces last night. Was there anything surprising that came out of this scrimmage, in your opinion, from the quarterback position?
I think just the news that we heard about Zane Flores. I mean, the guy seems like he's the real deal for, being from Nebraska. I think a lot of people still, not necessarily OSU fans, but people that around the Big 12 may have doubted him because I'm not sure, how great Nebraska high school football is, but just, him coming in and, first day and showing out and has a buzz around campus. I think that's awesome, man. And I genuinely believe he is the future of Oklahoma State football.
No, I think you're right. And it seems to be that way, right? He is looking like the future of the program. And he's far and away above where Garrett Rangel or Gunnar Gundy ever were as a freshman, right? If you look at Zane Flores right now compared to Garrett Rangel at this time last year, it is not the same conversation. That obviously I will admit. But at the same time, even if, okay, in your opinion, what would it take for Zane Flores to be the starter day one, knowing that Gundy has a propensity to not be the biggest fan in the world of true freshmen in any position?
Man, that's what I was about to say. Gundy, it's, We saw it with Spencer Sanders. You know, whenever Spencer Sanders came in his freshman year, a lot of people were, you know, pleading the case for him to get in and at least play. You know, his mom even came out on Twitter and posted something like, let my boy play, yada, yada. But I think regardless whether it's Bowman or Rangel, like one of the two of those dudes will be the starter. Like when first game when they trot out, Bowman or Rangel will start. I think Flores will get his opportunities to get into the game, and play. And, you know, obviously if you want to redshirt them, you still can play them 4 games. So it's like, we'll see what happens. It's going to be really interesting because, like I said, no one really knows too much about Alan Bowman. He didn't really play at Michigan, you know, and I mean, we saw him when he was at Texas Tech and he lit OSU up. So if that's the Alan Bowman we're getting, I think Alan Bowman is going to play the whole year as the starter, and Rangel will back him up, and we'll end up redshirting Flores. But that's the whole reason I think Gundy did. It's like a corn dog year. Gundy's bringing going to play 1 year just to get Flores familiar with the playbook and OSU system in general. And I think Flores will take over as a redshirt freshman.
Really?
I do. And no knock on Rangel. Like I said, it's really up in the air. I don't know because, like I said, I don't know what all is going on with Rangel. It's still a little too early to know because I don't know what Rangel's worked on in the short off season he's had to improve. So I don't know. We'll really see it as you know, time progresses on with the spring practices and see what happens. But I just wasn't really impressed with Rangel last year, even being a freshman. I understand, like, it's a whole different level of football going from high school because he tore it up in high school. You know what I mean? So,
well also, I think that, you know, whenever he came, there was no conversation, right, about him preparing like he was going to be the starter whatsoever, right? At almost any time in the season, right? And, you know, I know people want to throw a lot of shade because the sample size that we saw wasn't necessarily the greatest. But again, I think you have to take into consideration what he was being asked to do before he was asked to jump in. It was different. And we also got to remember that out of Gundy's mouth, whenever he rolled out Garrett Rangel for the Kansas State game, right? His conversation on the sideline to Robert Allen was, he's starting not because he beat out Gunnar Gundy, but because he wanted to avoid some of the negative connotations in the press conference afterwards. Like, he legitimately said that. Well, and that was bothersome for me. But that in and of itself, in my opinion, it leans itself for us to believe that Garrett Rangel wasn't exactly prepared. He was kind of thrust into a no-win situation, in my opinion. And we all know the poor kid was a string bean. Like, his mama bear will tell you, if the poor guy couldn't put on 15, 16 pounds, which he has, but if he couldn't do that, it was going to be a struggle for a significant amount of time. But what Garrett Rangel was asked to do in the offseason, obviously he's been able to do. So we're going to get back into – I want to go back to Alan Bowman, okay? But real quick, I do have to jump in and let the fine people out here know today we're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Now, you guys are very well aware that FanDuel is the #1 sports book in America. That's right, because now you need to go get the FanDuel app because we're giving new customers the no sweat first bet. It's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today to claim your no sweat first bet. You already know you can wager on a multitude of things. You can bet on the money line, bet on the point spread, bet on who's going to knock down the next 3 or who's going to win the whole daggone thing. The app is super safe, secure, and easy to use, so don't miss your shot to get this no sweat first bet. Again, up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win when you join FanDuel today. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up now. Again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment matter more with FanDuel. All right, brothers, let's go back to Alan Bowman. The fear for me, right, since we now know he looks like Drew Brees, Brandon Weeden, Mason Rudolph, whatever you want to say, when it's just drills, right, throwing to the nets, hitting the spots, running the routes. But whenever we went live in the scrimmage, it all kind of I don't know. It's like it looked like it came too fast for him. Is that a sign? Or do you think maybe when we get into full pads, they'll find that next gear?
I think he's just rusty. I mean, like I said, he didn't play in Michigan that much. I don't even know if he ever got in at Michigan, to be honest with you. Do you know?
He got some snaps, but nothing realistic, no.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, the guy's gonna have a little rust. It's just, gonna take him some time, but I mean, he has plenty of time from now up until the first game of the season. So I mean, I think, yeah, he can definitely switch gears. And I think that, the dude has a cannon for an arm. He is, I mean, looking at his, his clips from Texas Tech, the guy is accurate. He can throw a bomb. And like, that is what Oklahoma State looks for in a quarterback. Someone that can launch the ball down the field and is accurate. And, Spencer Sanders was a different type of quarterback than what OSU was used to having. We're not used to having a dual threat quarterback that can take off and is really good running with the ball. We're used to having a guy that a 6'2", 6'3" guy, 6'4" that can stand in the pocket and launch the ball. But if the play busts, just throw it out of bounds. That's the type of guy that OSU used to having. And Bowman, he seems like he's pretty decent with his feet too. Like, I'm not saying he's a Spencer Sanders runner, but he looks like he can. If he gets some D linemen run up on him, it looks like he can get away. You know what I mean?
So I don't entirely disagree. Okay, but to play devil's advocate, the thing that concerns me, and which is why I asked about the pad scenario, if he's having difficulty right now in just shell thud practice type scenarios. And we know that historically, right, the knock on him coming out of Texas Tech was after his second punctured lung. That's when he started getting happy feet in the pocket, started getting the jitters, started missing on throws that everybody knew he could make. And then he's had nothing but injuries. And so that has followed him for the last 3 years, right? A guy with a crap ton of talent that maybe missed his opportunity because now he's too scared in the pocket, right? And we're not even in pads yet. So that's my only fear there is when you see the accuracy, you're like, oh my goodness gracious, like we're going to win 10 games, right? But then whenever you see the live product without pads, that concerns me, man. If he's already missing windows without having dudes actually run him over, that's my concern for when the season starts, brother. I think he should be the guy. I hope he's the guy because I agree with you. We need a corn dog, bridge the gap type of season. But, man, am I the only one scared that when we get pads on, it might even get worse?
Well, and it's not even that, too. I mean, yeah, that's something concerning. Like I said, it's still super early. You know what I mean? So, like, he has plenty of time, but it also, you talk about that, but it goes into the O-line, too, because our O-line has been bad the last 4 or 5 years of protecting the quarterback. And so, with a guy like I know Zane Flores, like looking at his highlights from high school, like, he could run. He was, he would run when he had to. And, but that's high school football. That's a completely different level of football. Now you're in college football Division I playing in a top 3 conference in the country. So it really just depends on can our O-line block? And so, I feel like the last couple of years, if we didn't have Spencer Sanders, we would have been screwed because we need a quarterback that is mobile with his feet that can get out because our O-line cannot block, man. They cannot block. And that is like the most frustrating thing. Spencer Sanders getting all this hate, like, oh, he throws picks. He never had time, bro. He never had time. If he had an O-line like what Mason Rudolph had, he would have been phenomenal. He really would have. He would have been great. And so that's why I can't stand the Spencer Sanders hate because the guy, like, it's not all of his fault. Our O-line is just terrible. Yeah. And so that's what I'm looking forward to this year. It's like, we bring a lot of O-line guys back. And so it's like,
all of them, bro. 99%.
Are you going to be able to block? And no, it's not all their fault. Coaching has a lot to do with it.
Calling a draw up the 2-hole on 3rd and 22 is not super helpful.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really, we talk about the quarterback play and what's going to happen, but, if our O-line can't block, I don't think any of them are going to be successful.
Okay. So, I want to get to O-line. I'm actually really glad that you kind of segued into it, but briefly, I do want to ask you, Do you think there's any way to read into Gunnar Gundy having the most surprising spring? He didn't get a crap ton of reps, okay? And he's only 2 weeks removed from getting released from that shoulder surgery. But because of that reconstructive shoulder surgery, he wasn't pegged to really do anything. So for him to get out there, complete a few passes, move the ball, move his feet, move up in the pocket, not get happy feet. Do you think that's anything to read into? Or is it one of those, well, we don't have pads on, so he's probably 4-string no matter what? Or do you think that it's at least indicative of the possibility of him being a solid number 3 guy and again, allowing that maturation process to occur naturally for Zane Flores? Or do you think Zane's the 3 and Gunner's the 4 regardless of what happens?
I think Gunnar Gundy lives the dream, coming into his first year at OSU. I think the guy understood that he's probably never going to see the field or he won't play that much. I think he just wants to kind of follow out like what his dad did, live the dream of what his dad did. And, Gunnar Gundy, he could be a great quarterback at like a Division II school. Yeah. He has talent, but he's just not there for Big 12 football. And I love the kid. He's a great kid. You know what I mean? No knock on him. He has come in games and looked pretty decent, but I think regardless of the situation, like I believe he's going to be 4-string regardless, he still might get in games. Like if we blow anybody out this year, he could still get in depending on what we do with Flores, if we redshirt him or not, he still has an opportunity to get in the game. So I'm happy to hear that, he had a really good scrimmage. I'm happy for the kid, like I said, phenomenal kid, but to be honest with you, I don't think it matters at all because I don't think he's going to see the field that much.
I mean, you're probably not wrong. I do think you're wrong as far as like the D2 thing. I don't know. I'm a believer in Gunnar. I think Gunnar could start at a lot of D1s, at the Tulsa levels, the Tulane levels, the
for sure. Yeah, most
South
definitely.
Florida levels. UTSA even, right? I think you can have a lot of success there. And I've said it before, so I won't beat the dead horse, but people do forget that Gunnar's evaluations coming out of high school were not bad.
No,
right? There was a lot of knocks on him for being a lefty and this and that and the other, but I tell people all the time, for what it's worth, right? Gary Patterson did in fact get fired, but Gary Patterson had Gunnar as literally one of their top quarterback targets.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not.
Yeah, so it's not like people didn't want Gunnar. It's that people didn't offer Gunnar because they found out that he was 99% sure he was going to O State. That's just
yeah, most definitely. I mean, I watched him play.
The dude threw for almost 9,000 yards.
Yeah,
he's not a sieve.
They had the state championship for the 6A Division II out here in Owasso. Yeah. His senior year, and they played Bixby. And they lost. Stillwater lost.
2 years in a row, they lost to Bixby in the time.
Yeah, they lost, but Gunnar had a very good game.
Yes.
He like you said, maybe I should have said a lower Division I because I'm with you. Like I agree. I think he could go play at a lower Division I or like I said, a really good Division II, and he'd be very successful. But
yeah.
I mean, every time I think of Gunnar Gundy, I think of last year after Spencer Sanders got knocked out of the game against
K-State shaking. Oh yeah.
And he comes in and man, they have the camera up on him and he's sitting there just like
poor guy.
Shaking. Yeah.
He's gonna live with him forever, man.
Yeah. And like I said, no knock. I think he is a great guy. I think he has a lot of potential. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised that I'd be surprised if he spends his whole career at OSU because I would love to see the guy go play somewhere and actually start and play. You know what I mean?
Agree. Same with Gage Gundy.
Yeah, and I'm surprised Mike hasn't told him that. But, like I said, maybe that's just Gunnar's dream. Maybe he just wants to be at OSU. And if that's the case, then, I'm happy for you.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right, so we've hit all the quarterbacks. Let's jump to the O-line. Right? Because that's a natural segue here. So what you said was accurate. Our O-line hasn't been able to stop a flipping cold, right? And without Jalen Warren, it was really it's just been a mess. It's been an absolute mess. But the difference between this year and last year is last year at this time, we didn't have enough O-linemen to do anything, We didn't have enough alignment to even run a legitimate 2 deep. We did not have enough physical bodies to have a productive spring from the O-line. And I don't defend Coach Dickey. Like, I love him. I love what he did at K-State, right? He's a legend at K-State. He's been absolutely horrendous at Oklahoma State. But where I do have a little faith is we're going back to an old school type of system, okay? So if we're asking guys like a Caleb Etienne, like a Dalton Cooper, to oversimplify, right? The military KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. It's that easy. What does every O-lineman want to do? They want to get a hold of that guy in front of them and manhandle him like a rag doll and get themselves a pancake on the stat sheet. You can't do that in pass pro very often. It's completely different. So I will give Coach Dickey that. He went from doing maybe 30% pass pro to 70% pass pro. So maybe we're asking him to do something that he was never able to do from the very beginning. So maybe we're going to see a new side. But, okay, I mentioned Caleb Etienne. What do you think we're going to do at left tackle? Because you had even mentioned earlier that Caleb Etienne came in with a lot of hype, right? And he's a mountain of a man. He came in at like 6'8", 370 or something like that, right? And he did have to shed 60, 65 pounds. So he played last year in a new body, but that new body didn't suit him very well.
Yeah, he definitely had some issues last year. And they said, going into the season, Mike Gundy praised Caleb Etienne and gave him a lot of credit and said, he's improved a lot and he's probably one of the most improved on the team. But, his play on the field was a little disappointing. He still let a lot of D linemen get to Spencer. He had a lot of flags called against him. And it's like, I get it. Like, I understand. He's still trying to figure it out. He has the potential, the body to be an NFL talent and go play in the NFL for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, but at some point it has to translate onto the field. And so I think this year, we were talking about it before the show. I think regardless, he's still going to get that nod at left tackle.
Okay. And
they're just going to kind of feel it out and see what happens, because he'll definitely start, in my opinion, against South Alabama. They'll just try it out the first couple of games and see. And if they need to move someone around, like what you say, you thought, was it Preston Wilson was going to move to the left?
I'm thinking Dalton Cooper, right? Because Dalton Cooper's the guy who played left tackle, right? 4 years at Texas State. I know it's Texas State, but you cannot fake production. And the dude allowed 7 sacks and 1,328 flipping snaps.
Man, I don't even care where you play. It's still the experience and getting there. And, there's going to be big guys at every level. I don't care. There's so many football players in this country. There's guys that slip through the cracks, end up going D2, D3, NAIA, and are great talent. You know what I'm saying? So I don't care where they came from. Like, when I first heard of the Utah Tech dude on the D lineman that came, I'm like, Utah Tech. But then I saw the guy. I'm like, bro, this guy is massive. Like, he is.
You can't teach 350.
Yeah. So it's like Texas State or not, he has the experience. He's been out there. He has, like I said, a great resume. Only allowing, you said, 7 sacks in his whole career. That's very impressive. So if it is what it is, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. We'll see. We'll see how it's going to go. But like I said, regardless, we just want to see that O-line make strides to be better and protect the quarterback and just open up gaps for our running game. You know what I mean?
Well, let's say that's the case. Okay, let's say that Caleb Etienne holds down the left tackle spot. Let's say that Dalton Cooper slides over to the right tackle.
Yeah.
You have 2 dudes that are 6'7", 320, 340 flipping pounds, and we're going to highlight the offense this year, which is, again, like you see people like Braden Cassidy. I'm sure you've heard by now he's been moved fullback full-time.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He's not the only one. Schultz was somebody that we're going to be able to replicate in that role as well. And then the tight end position. We have a real tight end position. Now, I've seen some comments in some of my other videos from the last few days, about doing different breakdowns. And the reason that we're doing it kind of categorically, it's because I'm letting the people pick. But the people I think are picking I really want to do O-line next as my full like film type of breakdown. You know what I mean? But people are clamoring for some tight end stuff, man, because we haven't had a real tight end in 7 years, 8 years.
It's been a long time.
So now we have legitimate tight ends that played tight end their whole life, that came here from playing tight end to play tight end again. And so, again, if you're going to have those mountain of men on the outside, and now you've got legitimate, certified, bona fide tight ends that are damn near Brennan Pettigrew size, is the interior of this O-line maybe not precisely what Coach Dickey thrived on at K-State? The Cole Birminghams and the Taylor Materkos and of the world, right? Is that not the kind of the essence of what he was? And that's not even talking about somebody like a Noah McKinney, who has a lot of snaps, a lot of playing time. He scored very, very well at UNLV, right? And he's a disciple of Marcus Arroyo. I think that what Dickey has always maybe wanted, he might actually have now. And we return 99% of the roster. And here's the fun part. If you look at it, and there's a lot of moving parts still, but it looks like we could easily have 4 new starting linemen. Now, Cole Birmingham's kind of cheating because he's not really new, right? He missed all season to injury last year. Okay, so even if you take him out of the picture, you're talking about 3 new linemen off of a group that returns all of its roster. Dude, we go 3 deep at every single position, except for maybe center, and even center. Because, again, I know Taylor Materko has played there. Preston Wilson is a jack of all trades, right? Preston Wilson can slide all over, which is something that our coaching staff has been able to pride itself on. But, I mean, is this not maybe the Dickey mold that we've been looking for?
Well, I think regardless, after this past season, seeing all the struggles that our O-line has had over the last couple of years, I think a lot of people, were fed up with Dickey. I know I was one person. I was definitely a person that thought Dickey was going to be fired this offseason. But like you said, maybe the system that we've been running on our offensive line isn't something that he's ever been familiar with. But Mike Gundy just wanted to roll it out and see what would happen. And so maybe now, like you said, we're doing stuff that Dickey really knows how to do, or what he did at Kansas State. So Mike Gundy's just like, here, we're going to do it this way. This is what you're used to, what you've done in the past. Let's see what you can do with it, and we'll go from there. So I hope it works out. Obviously, I don't ever want to see our Oklahoma State be bad, but it's, after year, we've been having these offensive line problems. So it's like, is something going to change? Because it's been super repetitive.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here. You ready?
Let's do it.
Do you remember the only true freshman that played on the O-line last year?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Remember Austin Koecke, that number 51 fella? Remember he came in and played left tackle.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, okay, so the biggest surprise to me last season was that. Did he get a crap ton of snaps? No. But he was pushing Etienne mid-season, right? Early on mid-season. So that means that's another person that we haven't even necessarily had a conversation about. And maybe because I know that I overlooked him last year. When I saw him on the field, I had to look up the roster because, like, who is number 51? And why is he at left tackle? What is happening right now? And, there's a lot of reports. Even Robert Allen had a really good report on the kid last season. He's extremely athletic. He's been able to go through the body by glass system. Is 6'5" for a tackle? Great. No. But again, we're looking for some versatility. And if the kid's good enough to play as a left tackle early on, I think it would be natural to assume that he could slide in there, right? And again, this is another Frisco, Texas. We've had some success with Frisco lately, right? We've had Frisco Lone Star, and now this Frisco High School as well. And he was ranked in the top 60 for position. He was a good get, man, and he played a lot as a true freshman, which is a very eye-opening thing for, I think, all of us to experience. But is he going to be a factor in all of this? Because I know didn't you say you pulled up the two deep a little bit earlier?
Yeah. Let me see him.
So I don't even know where does he factor right now on the 2-day as far as classification? Because I'm curious to see where Joe Mikulski and Drake Springfield and him line up right now.
So they got Jake Springfield at the right left behind Dalton Cooper.
Tracking. That makes sense.
And then it just says others not listed. Noah McKinney. I'm not even seeing.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird how they have it configured. But I think the reason I asked was because if you look at the 2 deep, I think that it's nothing but an indication that we do have a lot of guys who can play multiple positions, right? We know Jake Springfield has played right tackle. He's played a little left tackle, played a little bit of guard. Joe Mikulski, he's kind of played all over there in the middle.
He's a boss.
We know Cole Birmingham coming back is going to be massively important for us. Taylor Materko, I know he was a little undersized, but he's played a lot of snaps. And then we haven't even talked about Jason Queso Brooks, the guy who scored out the best basically all season from the guard position. Now, he did have quite a few flags, but he also scored out the best. But do you think that we have an offensive lineman right here, right now, that is a potential first team all Big 12 caliber dude? And if so, who?
I think Preston Wilson, just for what he can do. He can play literally any position on that O-line. And he, last year, he was kind of our go-to when he got hurt.
Yes.
Our O-line suffered. You could tell, didn't we get him back against OU and he was still banged up a little bit, but he played?
I can't recall if it was OU.
I believe it was
West Virginia, but we did get him back before the bowl, nonetheless.
Just that alone, just
it helped.
Seeing, we needed him back, and you could tell our O-line was suffering. So that's why I say that, because I feel like he's a huge piece to our O-line, and he's that guy that I think everybody looks up to on the O-line,
100%.
So that's how I think him, or like I said, I really like Joe McCaskey. I think he was a great addition to our offensive line. Good guy.
Joe, I call him Joe Dirte.
Joe Dirte.
Dude, he's got the mullet. He's got the mullet locks of love thing going, and I flip and dig it. Yeah, man. When's the last time, as an O State fan, you can say we were deep all the way across the offensive line? I didn't say super, super talented. We don't know yet. But depth. We haven't had that in goodness, man. How long?
Dude, it's been, like I said, I think the last decent O-line that we had was in the Mason Rudolph years. So, it's been a minute. And I don't even know how deep they were. I can't even remember how deep the O-lines were whenever Mason was here, but I just knew that they protected him pretty well for the most part.
Yeah.
So.
Corn Dog actually had a decent line. He had a decent line.
It wasn't bad, but I'm saying you're talking about depth. With all the depth that OSU has coming back on the O-line, there should be no exception this year that they played like they did last year. These dudes better come out here and be ready to play, because man, I'm telling you, Dickie knows. He has to know. Coaches see what fans put on, tweet out about them, and I know a lot of it is irrelevant. What fans think is irrelevant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but
to some degree, yes.
You got to think Dickie knows people are talking about him on social media, and he has to know that we aren't happy, whether it's his fault or Gundy's fault, whoever's fault it is, man. We could have had some very solid teams in the last couple of years, and even in 2 years ago when we made it to the Fiesta Bowl and beat Notre Dame, our O-line was bad. We just had Jalen Warren, who was just that good and could, he was a magician with the ball. He could do anything. And if you look at our game against Notre Dame and the Fiesta Bowl, our O-line was getting smacked around left and right. Granted, Notre Dame had some boys that were just big. So I give our O-line props for fighting, but the reason we won that game is because Spencer Sanders could run if he needed to.
Well, not only that, man, we got to see a wide open offense in that second half because we had no choice, right? Yep. Dude, this last season, man, if we got the lead early, it scared me. I'll just be 100% honest with you.
That TCU game still haunts me, my man. Like we should not have. We get man. There's
well,
so
and
many
you don't want to say that one game, right, affects everything, but it did, man.
that game did affect a lot of things.
There was some slight issues coming into the game, but nothing big. That game really just kind of put some of the stuff out there that, oh, okay, we've got some stuff to kind of get squared away, which I think we're on the right road. Okay, so we're gonna break this up into two, boss man, right? So let me go ahead and get us out, and then I'll bring us right back in. All right, for all of the fans out there, stay tuned. We're gonna roll this thing right back through here. So come right back. Until then, thank you for making this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. My name is Cody Stovall. That's Trent Snitz. I mean, that's his name on Twitter, and that's the name he wants to go by. He's going to stick with it. So, yeah, tune back in for part 2. All right? Cool beans. See y'all